The result of those two large liabilities showing up on that presentation does show a $26.9 million deficit. It's down from the previous year. In the current year, we actually showed a net profit or a net increase in net position of about $8.4 million. And this is the one spot where we do have revenues kind of absent of any transfers back and forth, and the one place where we show comparative information. So total revenues were up about $4 million year over year from 21 to 22. And of course, most of that has to do with the federal funding that's come in the door. Expenses were down year over year, and that mainly has to do with the fact that those pension valuation numbers changed, actually went down, so there was less pension expense shown. Moving over to page 6, we'll start talking about the fund level information. General fund is shown on its own because of its size and because of that's the way the governmental bodies want us to report it. And then all of the other funds of the district, food service, student activities, various debt funds and such, the sinking fund, are all shown in that non-major fund category because they don't reach the magnitude required to be shown on their own in the statement. You will find those displayed in the report. In the back of the report, all those smaller funds are all put together back there. But just some highlights here. The general fund ended the year with assets of about $19.6 million. Mainly money in the bank and money owed to us, either from the state of Michigan for state aid or federal granting sources for draws on our grants. Liabilities of about $5.5 million. Most of that has to do with accrued wages and benefits for our teacher contracts that are paid in the months of July and August, leaving you with fund balance in the general fund of just over $14 million. The unassigned piece, or the portion that was available for you or is available for you to appropriate, was about $8.3 million, or about 21% of a year's worth of expenditure. So very healthy position in the general fund. On the next page, our revenues and expenses. We'll just talk about the general fund there as well. Total revenues in the general fund this last year, just over $41.3 million. Expenses of about $38.6 million. So an increase to equity in the general fund of about $2.7 million. Pretty much what I've seen all across the state this year, with the influx of the ESSER money, which allowed you to defray some general fund costs by pushing them through this grant. Those dollars are starting to run out now, but we are seeing the effect of that on district's fund balance. On the next page, just a brief discussion about how our budget to actual results worked out on the general fund. 3 bullets there. The first one talking about revenues, the second one discussing expenditures, and the third one talking about the overall budgeted increase to fund balance for the year. So I'm happy to report that all of the variances are positive. So revenues came in higher than expected by about $385,000. Expenditures came in under our budgeted amount by about $323,000. So you had estimated adding about $2 million to equity. It ended up being about 2.7, so a positive variance of just over $700,000. So that's a good variance to have. Also, I just point out, and Jim can confirm, with this heavy influx of federal funds, budgeting has been an interesting science for schools in the last year and a half to 2 years, as you're trying to figure out which pot to take the money from. So getting the budget right on has been pretty difficult in the last couple of years. On page 9, just a couple of bits of information. The first one regarding total outstanding bonded debt, just under $4.8 million. So from a debt perspective, the district is in really good shape. The last of the bonds that you have out there under the various bond programs pays off in 2031. So as a district your size, that amount of debt is pretty good proportion. Total fixed assets at the end of the year after depreciation, about $23 million. In this last year, through your bond projects and sinking funds, you added about $2.8 million, $2.9 million for various projects going on around the district. And then lastly, just a note, the district did receive and expend over $1.6 million in pandemic funding in the last fiscal year. You still have ESSER 3 funds out there to the tune of about $1.9 million as of June 30th, that the district has until September of 2024 to spend. So I know you have plans for all that stuff, but it's going to buy you some more time here in 23 with those funds. And then lastly, as you all know, the foundation allowance took another nice jump up to 9150, which is much appreciated. We've had 2 really significant increases in state aid over the last 2 years, which has also helped with what's happening in the general fund as far as stabilization. I would take any questions you may have.
Coming back to their seats, want to make sure they have an opportunity to ask you questions.
Yep, absolutely.
So are you saying we should keep Jim a little while longer? Is he doing okay?
He's doing all right. He's doing all right. He's had an interesting situation over the last couple of years, so hopefully he's getting his personnel all replaced and getting his systems back in the way I'm sure he wants it. So,
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your help.
superb. You guys have a good evening. Don't stay too long. You know, it's a wintry night, I'm sure, up there too.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
Okay, next up, Mr. Alex Tizio, MSHS Athletic Director.
For letting me attend today's meeting, and I do have 2 guests with me. Christian Verardi, who is the chairperson for the newly formed Marquette County Interscholastic Cycling nonprofit, and Mr. John Kangas, who is going to be our new head coach for the 2023-2024 academic year high school sport of mountain biking. And so this is something that has been in the works for quite some time. As Mr. Vardy will get into here in a minute, it's a longer history and relationship with the 906 Adventure team that has kind of brought this forward into where we're at today. But that group was formed back in 2015, and the sport of mountain biking regionally here, as many of you know, is just it's a ever-growing sport in our community, and especially so amongst youth and youth sports and youth organizations. So just to take you through this process a little bit, I know Mr. Sedgwick had passed along the program overview and kind of what things will be looking like within this newly formed sport for next year. But as this process moved along from a few years back and progressing to the time of wanting to request and make this sport edition for next year, ultimately we were looking at 3 things, and first and foremost it was demand. Not only for the short term, but the forecasted numbers over the long term as well. And as I had mentioned, the sport of mountain biking, both in our community and regionally, both with downstate schools and participation down there, and with schools over in Wisconsin, is growing at a very rapid rate. And so this past year we had 11 total participants within our school-affiliated race team that was housed through the 906 Adventure team. This is built from 4 to 8 to 11 over the past 3 years, and it's anticipated to just keep growing from there. And this group is going to be competing and participating in the Wisconsin Interscholastic Cycling League that I can expand on here in a minute, but just participation within that group itself has went over the past 3 years from 1,200 to 1,700 to over 2,000 this past year, with over 70 schools participating in the state of Wisconsin. And so you can just see the rapid growth within this sport, and getting back to kind of the overall demand. You can see that the demand and want for this type of organization and recognition from the school is certainly there from our students. It's certainly there from our parents, who have kind of organize themselves just into a nonprofit, and being able to be willing to establish and create not only a set of bylaws for their own operational standards, but then an operational code and how they will be working with me out of the athletics department and then us out of the high school. But the second thing that we're looking at when adding a sport is just that degree of safety. Racing mountain bike through the woods, obviously not the, definitely some safety concerns there. But when it comes to liability insurance, the Wisconsin Interscholastic Cycling League has liability insurance that covers our student athletes and participants, as does NICA, which is the National Interscholastic Cycling Association. And so our student athletes being covered from both of those organizations, as well as our nonprofit that will hold their own policies, and it just leaves you with knowing that our students in this organization are going to be in very steady hands, and leaves you with a good feeling. Just the last thing that we're looking at is just that overall structure. And so, as I had mentioned, we're going to be competing, our students will be competing in the Wisconsin Interscholastic Cycling League, and this is a league that allows you to begin practice on July 1st, and then beginning the first weekend in September, they go through and have 7 total weekends of competitions for our students. Competitions start on Saturday afternoon. There's a Saturday series of races that our students will be competing in, and then Sunday. And so just with those competitions being held on the weekend, obviously minimizes missed class time, and the locations that our students will be transporting to is anywhere from 200 miles to just over 300. And so this is the Wisconsin League. The Michigan League is coming along. Right now it's still very much in its developing stages. And so overall, we will be the first Upper Peninsula school to be sponsoring a mountain biking team, 6th in the state of Michigan. But then within this Wisconsin League, there are 70-plus teams. So you can see the regional growth there and the sponsorship for their teams. But in terms of what this means for our students, kind of why the push was made, and why we're at where we're at, I want to introduce and kind of pass things over to Mr. Verardi, who will take us through things.
Thank you, Alex. My name is Christian Verardi. Like Alex said, I'm the board chair for Marquette County Interscholastic Cycling. Interscholastic cycling is not new to the Marquette community. 906 Adventure Team has had a team sponsored in the Wisconsin Interscholastic Cycling League since 2015. That's actually how 906 Adventure Team started. We wouldn't be here today without 906 Adventure Team. I must give them recognition for that. One of the reasons we are here, though, is because 906 Adventure Team has grown from a handful of participants back in 2015 to over 700 now. And of those 700, 30 of them were on the race team. So to provide capacity for the race team in excess of 30 participants, as well as for 906 Adventure Team so that they can focus on their core mission, we took Marquette County Interscholastic Cycling Team under our own nonprofit. It was a very amicable split. It serves both parties, the best interest of both parties, both 906 Adventure Team and Marquette County Interscholastic Cycling. Our main focus is to have the athletes recognized for their contributions and their efforts, to have the school recognized for their contributions and their efforts, as well as to be able to grow our own capacity beyond the 30 athletes that we had in the entire race team last year, not just MSHS. That being said, I do want to point out that MSHS, our 11 scoring athletes last year, finished second in the Wisconsin Interscholastic Cycling League at the highest, most competitive level of competition. So that is something worth noting, and why we felt that we really need to focus on this and grow it now versus waiting for any other opportunity in the future. John, you want to say anything?
I just want to say one thing about these kids that are pretty spectacular athletes, just like all of the other sports at MSHS. They finished second in the state of Wisconsin to a team from Madison West that has almost 150 kids in their program. We had 11. 30 total 25 from MAPS District, 5 from Nagani. We hope Nagani will be the second UP team very soon with Alex's help. We'll see if that happens. We're keeping our fingers crossed. These kids want to represent their school. They have represented this community very proudly. And I think the Wisconsin League will continue to invite us back as long as they conduct themselves the way they have. So really hoping to do this school district proud in Wisconsin again next year.
All right, well, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview as to what we're expecting next year. I'm really excited about the addition of this sport offering for our fall programs, and excited to have these student athletes and their accomplishments, as you can see, are quite substantial, recognized and along with all of our other various athletics programs. So, does anybody have any questions with this sport edition? Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tizio, Mr. Berardi, and Mr. Kangas. I'm going to actually move over to the podium and ask Dr. Cherry and Mr. Randall to join me if they would. Well, it's my honor to pay respects to a couple of our board members who are going to be finishing out their terms here very soon with the conclusion of the year. Have just a short narrative to share with you for each of them, and truly appreciate all that you've done to support MAPS, support me, our staff, our students, our community. So, Dr. Brian Cherry, current MAPS Board Vice President, has served on the board from 2000 to 2014 and again since 2017. Dr. Cherry has brought the board his impressive knowledge and experience in public administration, political science, and higher education. Dr. Cherry possesses unique foresight and clarity when addressing fiscal responsibility, policy leadership, and other complex district responsibilities. His tenure as a board member is laudable, and I am so grateful to Dr. Cherry for his service to our district. Thank you, Dr. Cherry. James Randall, current MAPS Board of Education President, has served on the board since 2017. Prior to serving on the board, Mr. Randall participated in many community groups, district committees, and has been a frequent attendee of countless MAPS events. His dedication as a board member is second to none, and I am so grateful to him for his service to the district, the students, and the community. Thank you, Mr. Randall. Either of you want to say anything? We'll just do the comments. Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I have for the board tonight.
Okay. Moving on to the approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of regular meeting of November 28th, the minutes of special meeting of December 5th, closed session meeting of the special meeting of December 5th, the minutes of special meeting of December 14th, personnel report dated December 2022, and the financial reports of November 2022. Take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, board committee reports. Mr. Cherry, Dr.
Okay.
Cherry.
So the executive committee met on December 7th, 11:30 Central Boardroom, and it was Mr. Randall, Ms. Kambinzi, and myself. We only had two things on the agenda. One was the central office update, as was alluded to in the presentation on the audit. We've had somewhat of a high turnover rate in the central office with, basically Deb's left this year, and we got Jim in, and then we've got a new HR person coming in, new business manager, and some other positions. So we have had a lot of turnover, and one of the issues that tends to create is kind of a loss of institutional memory. So there is some concerns with that. And the other piece that we went into, the superintendent gave us a facility update, work on elevators, AC unit at Bothwell, stop sign MSHS. Smith needs to replace a memorial tree, AC unit in the MSHS pod, Univent at alternative school, pool motor power supply. I'm not loud enough as it is. Outside lights at GSS, the GSS replaced bulbs to convert to LED, bus garage painting, all sorts of stuff. That's been kind of an ongoing issue too with, things with the facilities at MAPS. So, and that was it. Any questions?
Okay, appropriations committee meeting.
Okay, so we met last week on Tuesday, and Ms. Ray and myself, and basically the same topics were discussed and covered in that meeting as Dr. Terry just mentioned, with the addition of going over the audited financial report that we just had from Raymond as well. Just a little bit more in-depth and granular, I guess, than what you saw tonight, but otherwise, we also got the facilities update, and that was pretty much it. So I don't know if anybody had any additional questions for appropriations.
Thank you. Now we have our student school board representative report. Callie?
Recently in student council, we have been planning our winter assembly just for something fun to do before break. And our junior class have been coming up with ways to earn money for prom, and we've just been trying to plan prom also in general. So that's basically it.
All right, new business. We need a motion to accept the audit report by Raymond.
I make a motion to accept the audit report by Raymond.
I support.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item B is to consider extending the superintendent contract. We need a motion to do that. Jim?
Yep, I'll make a motion to extend Zach Sedgwick's contract for an additional calendar fiscal year.
Support.
Okay, we got a motion and support. Any discussion?
Just for discussion purposes, it's probably been a couple of years since we had this, but just because of Mr. Saunders, when he resigned, and last year we didn't really have a full year for Mr. Sedgwick. So, but prior to that, we had a number of years in a row where after the evaluation of the superintendent and the outcome of it, we made a recommendation as a board to extend the existing contract that was in place. And so we're following that pattern as we've done. Mr. Sedgwick had an effective rating from the annual review, and we feel that warrants another extension. So that's why it's on the board for consideration tonight. So.
Motion and support. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Sedgwick, for doing an exemplary job. Okay, comments from the public? Anybody? I don't have any slips up here. Okay, board member comments.
There we go. Just want to congratulate both you and Dr. Cherry on the new phase of your commitments, I'm sure, to other organizations. It was certainly, I'm sure I speak on behalf of the community when I say thank you for all the work that you've done in your position. Also, thank you for Mr. Lampman and helping us wade through this Raymond's audit. I can speak to the fact that the money has been fast and furious through the ESSER funding and other grants over the last 2 years. It's a little bit like drinking from a water hose, so or a fire hose rather. So thank you so much for that. It's certainly difficult to get through all that information, and you make it easy to understand.
Callie, any comments? No comments. Okay. Mr. Hewitt?
Yeah, sure. I'll echo the same comments as Mrs. Klipp. Congratulations and thanks for your service to both of you, and thanks to Mr. Sedgwick for a great year in review, and also to Mr. Lampman. So, nothing else.
Okay.
All right, well,
Dr. Cherry?
this is the final sign-off. This is, it's been 10 years I've been on the board. You know, the main thing the board does is hire superintendents, and I think, Bill and Zach have done a really good job, so I'm very proud of our ability to do that. The other things, the facilities. It's when I came on the board years ago, facilities really did need some attention, and we've came a long way in that. The budget, when I got on here years ago, was we had money, but we were paycheck to paycheck kind of thing, and things were looking down, so we took a new approach to how we were going to look at the budget and put some money aside and start spending money on facilities, and I think that's paid off very well. We were even in good financial shape prior to COVID coming in, so those are the kind of two big things I think the board runs that we're proud of. I was counting, I think I've worked with 13 different board members and 3 different superintendents, a couple different business managers, and it's been fun. I've actually enjoyed it. A lot of people, they say this is a thankless job, and it is, and you do catch a lot of guff for things and a lot of things not in your control. But again, as was pointed out, my background is public administration, and I tell my students all the time to get involved, and these are the important things that we do, and this is why I enjoy it. But I have enjoyed my time on the board, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cherry. Well, before tonight, Zach told me he was going to wear that outfit and said, "You can top that." I said, I got red and green, but I also have this, just so you know. Anyway, yeah, who can be the most fruitcake? I started with the school district when my oldest daughter started kindergarten. That was 18 years ago. I've been involved with it ever since then. It's been a wonderful trip. I attended a ridiculous amount of board meetings even before I got on the board. And it's a good place to be. The education of our kids is the most important thing we could possibly do. They are our future, whether anybody wants to admit that or not. It is true, and it's been a pleasure. I've served 2 wonderful superintendents, which is incredible, and the board's been great. We've done some really cool things, and progress has been made in a lot of areas. mean, there's lots left to do. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for you guys. Thank you, Jim.
I was gonna say, actually, I've known Linda now 26 years because she was the secretary at Silver Creek when my kids started 26 years ago there. So, yeah, so I've known her longer in this room than anybody, believe it or not. So, very.
Well, announcements and other meetings, December 23rd through January 2nd is winter break. There will be no school. And January 9th is the organizational meeting here in the library. And that's the end of that. So, make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.